Today's Talkback segment is each day we post a question on CourtTV's social media pages. We gather your comments and questions and respond right here on the show. Today we're discussing the staged suicide murder trial. Moore is accused of killing Emily Noble and then staging her body to make it look like she died by suicide. Well, today we learned the shocking way the defendant broke the news that his son, Noble's stepson, had died.
Emily received a text message in the morning, about 8 o'clock in the morning, after I had prepared breakfast. And the text message she received from Matthew was, "Joey is gone. He is dead. He hung himself."
So we asked you, what do you think of his decision to break the news in that way? Was it odd? I don't know. Still with me, attorneys David Bruno and Tammy Allison. All right, guys, our first comment comes from Sarah. Sarah says, this definitely helps the prosecution team. This makes him sound heartless and seem like a sketchy character. And David Bruno, it's interesting because I'm not sure what this says about the guy. I think from testimony, I think he had an odd sense of humor. He was a little bit of a different guy. A lot of her friends didn't like him, but not that he's not a likable guy, just seemed a little different. What do you make of his approach to that particular situation?
Well, look, first off, that comment, that question is talking about the defendant's character. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't have allowed it. I'd be arguing against it because it is bad character evidence. I don't know why that was able to be brought in, but everybody deals with tragedy different. And people can criticize how people react when they're told bad news or when they give bad news. Everybody reacts differently. But with this, it's not tasteful whatsoever. It's not the way to communicate that to that person. I just don't know what the relevance is in this particular case on that communication.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they want to show his heartlessness and the type of person he was, and I agree with you. I wondered about the relevance of that particular comment as well. No objection at the time, however, so it is a part of the record. Our next comment comes from Mary Ann. She says, I can't imagine the guilt and anguish that she must have felt with her husband and stepson killing themselves. Depressed people learn to hide their depression. Many feel ashamed or are a burden to those around them. It's exhausting putting on a happy face. And Tammy, you know, that's an interesting comment because that, if the defense can get this jury to believe that, I think that goes a long way to helping them with their theory that this was, in fact, a suicide and not a homicide.
You know, I think you're right, Michael, if the defense can prove that. But I think that that comment is, it perpetuates misconceptions about mental health, and we've talked about this before. I make no secret of the fact that I have anxiety. Most lawyers have some type of mental health something, right? So in terms of depression, I think that it's a huge leap to jump from she had depression to she killed herself. I mean, people exhibit their mental health illnesses in different ways. Sometimes it looks sad, sometimes it looks happy. Who knows what happens here? It's all about the defense being able to connect the dots for the jury to make it make sense.
Yeah, and we've heard from friends and family talking about that she wasn't that type of person. She was happy. This was around her birthday. And we do know that suicides tend to happen around holidays and birthday, things of that nature. David Bruno, quickly, before I get to the next comment, at the end of the day today, the defense was arguing about being allowed to bring in the mental health records of the victim in this case. She went to see a therapist after she found out about the death of her stepson. And again, as we know, she lost her parents. Her ex-husband committed suicide as well, so she was struggling. There was some question. The prosecution was against it. They said it wasn't relevant. Do you think that should be and will be allowed in this case?
Oh, I'd do the same thing if I was the defense attorney, because that's ultimately what you have to argue, and especially on the circumstantial case where they need inferences for the jury to come to inferences through facts. You just start hitting everything you can, and that particular issue on her mental health is very relevant in my mind from a defense perspective.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's extremely relevant. Our next comment comes from Luetta. Luetta says, he may have been overwhelmed in dealing with responders and by himself. At that point, I'd be ditching the phone and curled up in a corner in a horrible state. And you know what's interesting, guys? At the end of the day, a lot of people seem sympathetic to this guy. Tammy, do you find him sympathetic? Do you think that's helpful for him?
I don't find him sympathetic. I think that, you know, I don't know why anyone would text someone that their son died, but again, people respond to things differently. We have social media now. Social media is breaking the news of horrific, tragic events before families are finding out. So at this point, I don't think it's a matter of finding him sympathetic or not. It just is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And then, you know, this jury has a lot to pick through, so it'll be interesting. All right. Thanks to Tammy Allison and David Bruno for being with me tonight. Truly appreciate it, guys. Always a pleasure. Coming up next, we're going to review